Hi guys, today we are talking about angles, and this is kind of like the introduction to angles video, just kind of where we get familiar with angles and learn about some particularly important angles. So angles in angles or angles are the space. So way to measure the space between two lines that touch. So, if a line touches, that means it's what's called intersecting, and the angle is how close or far apart those lines are after they intersect. So, an angle is how much an angle is open. That's what we measure. So, there's parts that make up an angle. The two parts are, and earlier in your education, you probably learned it as a point or a corner and lines or sides of an angle. But now that we're kind of getting into more advanced stuff with angles, we're going to use very specific math vocabulary. The first part of an angle that's really important is called the vertex. And that is the point or the part where that angle comes together. That's the vertex. The other two parts are the ray, which is kind of like if you think of a ray of sunshine, it's a line that keeps going, right? A ray starts at the vertex and keeps going, and then the other ray, which again starts at a point and then keeps going. So every angle has one vertex and two rays. That's what each angle is made up of. All right. So there's some specific information that we need to know about angles, and some of that information is about how to name angles when we have kind of figures, like in geometry. So if I'm looking at this angle, just this top one right here, I could easily just say that this is angle E. And what this means right here, this is the symbol for angle. It kind of looks like an L, but it's a little angle. You can see that it's an angle. And that's the abbreviation. That's the math symbol for angle. So you read this as angle E. Now, sometimes there's going to be more than one angle off of angle E, like this. Like, we can't just say angle W because there's this angle and this angle and this angle and this angle. So we have to name this angle another way. And the other way to name this angle is to go in alphabetical order, or and you want to go in alphabetical order if you can have the point in the middle. So the most important part is to have the vertex, remember that's the point of the angle, in the middle. So it's kind of like driving directions. So you kind of go, okay, if I'm talking about this angle, it is angle D, E, F. Because it's kind of showing us, okay, here's the first point that's on the ray, then down to the vertex, then over to the other ray. And it's giving us kind of like driving directions that if we went D, E, F, we would know that it had to include this angle. So how you would write that is angle D, E, F. And most of the time you are going to want to put it in alphabetical order, like I mentioned earlier. You can't always do that because if the middle letter is not in alphabetical order, and it's like, it doesn't work to go in alphabetical order, then you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to put the middle letter, the vertex, in the middle, no matter what, to show that that's the vertex. But the other way to write this would be angle, if you could drive the other way, F, E, D. But a lot of times, this is the more correct one just because it does the parts that can go in alphabetical order, D comes before F, so you would start with that. It doesn't super matter, but just so you know what you'll see most often. But either way, the vertex E has to be in the middle because it's telling you that you go there second, and it's the middle part of the angle. So here, we've got lots of different things going on. There's not just one angle here. So I want you to take a minute and think about what are some angles? How could you label some angles on this set of angles, on this figure? So we can let's just name a couple angles from here. So what if I wanted this angle? If I wanted that angle, I couldn't just say angle W, because angle W might be referring to that, or it could be that, or it could be that, or it could be the whole thing, but we certainly can't tell that it's just this. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of use those driving directions and say, okay, well, to include this angle right here, you could start at Y, then you would have to go to W. Notice how W, the vertex, is in the middle of the label, the name. Then you would go to Z. Okay, so that is the label for this green angle right here. Now let's change colors and let's do this angle right here. And we'll show it with different angle, we'll show it with a different color. So red is going to be angle, we start at V, still go to the vertex W, and then to Z. V, W, Z. Now, here's something interesting. What if I wanted an angle like this? All the way from here to here. This orange one right here. What if I wanted that angle? Well, I can still give the driving directions and just ignore this line in between. So it would go V to W, so angle V to W to Y. And now that is that whole orange big angle. Okay, so now that we know about angles and how to name them and stuff, we're going to talk about degrees and things like that and how to measure angles. One other thing I did want to throw in really quick and just give you a heads up about is sometimes we get to go a little bit easier than all this business and naming with letters. Sometimes you'll have something like this. Sometimes you'll have an image like this. And instead of using letters and points to name the angle, you'll just be able to say this is angle 1 and this is angle 2. Sometimes that's the case. And if that's the case, awesome. But if there's a lot more going on and they're naming it with points and there's more angles than can just be labeled like this, then we have to know how to name the angles with the letters. All right. So something really important, angles are measured in degrees. Not like temperature degrees, but the symbol and the word is actually the same. If I'm saying that an angle is 12 degrees, how you write that is 12 with a little circle up there. That says 12 degrees. That is how you measure angles. The bigger the number, the more open the angle is. Okay. There's some specific types of angles that we need to talk about and that we need to kind of know and that you kind of do just have to have memorized. The first one is a right angle, and we'll talk about that in a second. But let's practice naming angles before we just get into the types and what their measures are. So this angle we would name by letters. So if we're naming this angle, we start at A, go to B, the vertex has to be in the center, and then C. The other way you could name this is C, B, A. Okay. All right, this type of angle, this is really important. You need to know this. This is a right angle. This is a right angle. When it's a perfect kind of box and it has this box in the corner, that is a right angle. Straight up and straight sideways. It can be crooked. But it has to still have the same distance apart. So it still has to be a right angle. And you can think of a right angle as kind of like a perfect corner, where it's straight perpendicular, which is a word maybe you don't know, but to the other line. And so that's a right angle. You can always tell right angles right away if they have this. Not all right angles have it, but if it does have that, it is a right angle. And the measure of any right angle in the universe, every single right angle in the universe, is 90 degrees. 90 degrees. Okay, that's really important to know. When you see an angle like this that looks kind of like, a perfect little side of a square, that's a right angle and it's 90 degrees. All right, this next one, if we named it, it would go MNP. So angle MNP or angle, I should make that capital, there we go, angle PNM. And this is, we don't know what the measure is specifically of it, but it is less than 90 degrees. This opening is less than 90 degrees. And this is what we call an acute angle. That might be familiar to you, acute angle. And those are less than 90 degrees. And another way to write that is less than 90 degrees. Take a second to think about what this one is. Is this open? How is this open? And what might you name this angle? So if I was going to name it, I would say, okay, I'm starting at K, going to L and then J, K, L, J. I could also go J, L, K, J, L, K. That is open more wider than a 90-degree angle, than a right angle. So that is obtuse. Any obtuse angle is more than 90 degrees. And you could say that as more than 90 degrees or greater than 90 degrees. Now, here's the deal. You guys, these are kind of like the ones that I would bet that some of you have seen before. Maybe not all of you, but some of you have seen before is these. A right angle, acute angle, and an obtuse angle. Now we're going to talk about two angles that are really important, really, really important, that are just as important as these, but you might not know yet. One of them doesn't really look like an angle at all. One of them just looks like a straight line. And what it actually is it's kind of like an angle that went around so far that it became a straight line. So if this is an angle, it would go around so far that it becomes, and my arms don't work like that. There, it goes around so far that it becomes a perfectly straight line. Okay, and if I'm naming that, I would name that right here on this angle, it would be angle D, E, F, or angle F, E, D. But what the type of angle that is called a straight, because it makes a straight line, a straight angle, and that is 180 degrees. You need to know that is 180 degrees. If you turn around 180 degrees, you will be looking the exact opposite direction. Okay? So if you're on a skateboard and you do a 180, you start facing this way and you end facing the opposite way. That is 180 degrees. The next type of angle, this might look straight again, but this is actually an angle that it started here and then it went all the way around, and ended back where it started. Okay, so the name of this one, we could name it angle X. We still have to go to the vertex Y, Z, or angle Z, Y, X. And this angle that went all the way around and ended up back where it started, that makes a circle. If you do that, that makes a circle. That is called a full angle because it makes a full rotation or a full circle, and that is 360 degrees. So these are really important to know. These angles are really important to know. And they do have to be something that you kind of memorize. And the reason for that is because you need to know right away that if you see a straight line, it's 180 degrees. If you see a full rotation, that is 360 degrees. If you see a right angle, you need to know, oh my goodness, that is 90 degrees right away without really thinking about it too much. You need to know those things. Okay, so if you need to pause it and look at this a little bit, that's totally fine. Just do what you need to do to kind of get the hang of this and get familiar with a right angle, 90 degrees, straight line, 180 degrees, full circle, 360. Super important. Okay, guys, good luck with this. Watch any parts of the video that you need to again, and we'll be back to talk about more angle stuff.